We're back for another year of FPL on this channel, and I know in the past that my uploading schedule or consistency hasn't been there in the past. I've uploaded a couple weeks, played a couple weeks, and I quit because of how bad I'm doing. This year I promise you, no matter how bad or how good I'm doing, I'm going to be uploading for 38 game weeks plus all the extras, all the transfers, all the knee-jerk reactions, etc, etc. But before we get into that, make sure you guys like, share and subscribe, turn the bell on so you know when I upload those videos every single week, plus more. And obviously I've got a bit of a TikTok following now as well, so if you're from TikTok, let me know down in the comments below. And also one more thing, the whole point of me uploading these videos to YouTube is so that I get your guys' input as well as my own. Let me know of any improvements I could do to the team, anyone I should take out, anyone I should get in, and when I should use my wild card and stuff like that. But you guys know how this goes, you guys are seeing all the other FPL channels. Let's get straight into business. So we're going to be starting off obviously with the defense as always, and obviously you can see on the left hand side I forgot to add my goalkeeper. You're just going to have to listen out for that one, because with the goalkeeper I actually think that's completely based on who you want. With the goalkeeper I think, you know what, it's more of a game week player. You know, you keep the goalkeeper pretty much the same throughout the whole of FPL from what I've experienced anyway, and from what I've seen of other people. If you want to go for the more expensive keepers like Edison, Allison and people like that, the higher up keepers, it's going to cost you outfield. So I've decided to go with the cheaper keepers, a keeper that's not actually got a bad fixture in the first game week in Gaeta. He's got Sheffield, a newly promoted Premier League team. They've obviously been in the Premier League before, but newly promoted, we hope Crystal Palace can get a clean sheet there. So I've gone for Gaeta in goal. I've got Pickford on my bench if I decide to change my mind. But yeah, that's everything on the keeper. I don't want to spend too much time on the keeper. With the defence, we're going to start off with the main man, John Stones. Now, this guy was arguably City's best defender last season. Coming in at 5.5 million, I think this guy is an absolute steal. He was playing a very different role for Pep last year, playing in almost that 8 position. We don't know how it's going to be this season, obviously with Kovacic signing. Obviously Gundogan left, so Stones was doing that while Gundogan was there, so maybe he'll carry on doing it. But if he's not, he's definitely, in my opinion, Pep's first choice centre back. He could play on the right, he could play in the middle, he could play that DM role as I just said. In my opinion, this guy for me is a no-brainer. If you're going for a City defender, especially with the fixtures that they have in the first 3 weeks, 2 of the 3 teams they play in the first 3 weeks are newly promoted teams. But even for a team like Man City, does that really matter? They can bag a clean sheet against anyone, in my opinion. And to be honest, it's a fact. You guys all know this as well. So for me, John Stones was an absolute no-brainer coming in at 5.5 million. Great defender. He's going to start for Man City. Obviously, he might even play right back with Kyle Walker getting a bit older. Pep might decide to drop him. He's dropped him a lot in the recent games that they've played. Dropped him in the semi-finals of the Champions League, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know, Stones for me, absolutely no-brainer. Next up, we've got William Saliba. This was the other no-brainer for me, coming in at 5 million. Look at Arsenal's first 3 fixtures. We've got Nottingham, Crystal Palace and Fulham. Crystal Palace weren't too good last season. They did take points off us last season. Nottingham Forest did as well. But in the reverse fixture, we battered these teams. And Fulham, a team that started very well in the Premier League last season and dropped off a lot. You know, the red cards with Mitrovic, the suspensions with Willian and players like that. They did drop off, and I think every other team above them has got stronger, whereas they haven't really made any improvements. You know, Solomon, their better winger, looks like he's going to be going to Tottenham, so they might be even losing some players. So for me, this is a great first 3 weeks for Arsenal and for Saliba. He's going to start, obviously, with the signing of Yuri and Timber. Is he going to start ahead of Saliba, ahead of Gabriel, ahead of Ben White? We don't know. We can only judge that off when we actually see it. So for me, William Saliba being one of Arsenal's most important defenders last season, coming in at 5 million for me is a no-brainer, because he will start. You know, Arsenal's downfall last season started when Saliba got injured. So for me, John Stones and Saliba are 2 perfectly priced players to have in the team. Now next up, the final defender I'm going for 3 at the back is Estepinian from Brighton. Brighton for me, they're starting off with the worst team in the league in my opinion, Luton. They are newly promoted along with Burnley and Sheffield, but in my opinion they are going to be the worst team out of the 20 in the Premier League. And then after that they've got Wolves and West Ham, 2 underperforming teams from last season as well. And West Ham losing Declan Rice, they're going to be really exposed in that midfield in my opinion. And Wolves, they were last a lot of the time in the Premier League last season. So they've actually lost a lot of players as well. Neves is gone, Moutinho's gone, so their midfield is looking very open as well. And Brighton, from what we know from last season, an amazing team going forward. And you know, Estepinian was one of those reasons. You know, he was getting up there, having shots, getting assists, getting in very attacking positions in the box a lot of the time as well. So for me, coming in at 5 million again with another great 3 fixtures, Estepinian is an absolute brainless pick. Now we're going to move on to the midfield. And we've got another couple of Arsenal players and another Brighton player in there. Saka and Martinelli, pretty self-explanatory. They were absolutely amazing last season, not just because I'm an Arsenal fan from what you can see in the background and my shirt, but these 2 players were absolutely ridiculous last season. Martinelli with 15 goals and however many assists. Saka with 15 goals as well, I think it was, and however many assists. I think he got over 10 assists as well. So his output and his outline numbers were amazing last season, and their prices are fairly fair. You know, you look at them, 8.5, 8 million. I'm surprised Saka wasn't around the 9.5 after the last 2-3 seasons that he's had. And Martinelli being one of Arsenal's most important players last season, coming in at 8 mil. You know, he's cheaper than Rashford for the first 3 weeks that they've got. You know, I don't have any United players in the starting 11 apart from our bench. That's because in the first 5 weeks, you know, you're looking at Bruno, you're looking at Rashford. They've got difficult fixtures in the first 5 weeks. They go play Arsenal, they got to play Spurs, they got to play Brighton. In the first 5 weeks, it's not worth having a Rashford or a Bruno and having to take them out. Depending on how they do in the first 2 weeks, obviously, that will determine whether or not I get them in. But for now, Saka and Martinelli and Saliba complete the Arsenal trio. And I'm very happy to have them in my team because I think their outlying numbers in the first 3 weeks will be amazing. Yeah, again, especially the first game being at home and the third game being at home. You know, 2 out of the 3 games are at home. So for the first 3 weeks, in my opinion, absolutely amazing. Next up, we got Mitoma, and for me, I was surprised at how cheap this guy was. He was probably, arguably, no, he was Brighton's best player last season. You know, his outline numbers might not show that. He might not have the most impressive outline numbers, but he was definitely the biggest threat for Brighton last season. You know, like I said already when I talked about Estepinian, they're starting off with Luton, they're starting off with Wolves, and they're starting off with West Ham. 3 teams that are 3 of the weakest teams in the Premier League. And Mitoma is going to absolutely have field days out there if he can be the best form of himself against these teams. And finally, in midfield, I've got Eberici as a player that done very well towards the end of the season. And again, starting off just like Gaia with a newly promoted team in Sheffield, I think he's going to do wonders. Obviously, he's got a couple harder fixtures coming up after Sheffield, but I've got the bench to cover that. And I think Eberici Eze for 6.5 million for the rest of my team was actually a very, very good player to have. And I'm going to go to the rest of my team and we're going to talk about the attack because it was very expensive. It's where most of my money went and it could easily change. Reason being is because of Harry Kane. He looks like he might be leaving Tottenham. There's a 70% chance right now. Bayern Munich just put in a new bid today, just before I started recording this video, of 80 million. But does he want to stay in England? We don't know yet. If he doesn't, he'll look at that Bayern Munich move and think, you know what, he could win the Champions League with this side. Because he's not going to win it with Tottenham, realistically. So, having said that, Kane might be out of my team by the time the first week even starts. I don't need to explain a player like Kane. He got 30 goals in the Premier League last season, which is ridiculous that he didn't win the Golden Boot, which is when I will get into Haaland. But Harry Kane got 30 goals last season from a very, very poor Tottenham side. He scored in 26 consecutive Premier League games. He's just getting better every year. He gets better with age, and that's what led me to have him in this team. No matter who he plays, he is likely to get a goal. You know, his output in numbers, his outline numbers are amazing. The goals he scores, he got a variety of goals in him. We've seen it last season. He scored the long range free kicks, he scored the headers, he scored the volleys, he scored every type of goal. I don't need to explain Harry Kane. If you guys have been playing FPL for a couple of years now, you guys know that Harry Kane is a player you just have to have in your team. Whether he's leaving or not, that will be decided by the time the Premier League starts, and that will decide whether or not I have him in my team. The second striker obviously is Erling Haaland. Don't need to talk about him. He broke the record. He broke every single record under the sun in his first Premier League week. Don't need to talk about him. He's coming in at the most expensive player in FPL ever. and it is backed up with evidence. He broke every record. He broke the Premier League record. He won the treble, won the Champions League, won everything, won City's first Champions League. I don't need to explain Haaland. It would just be stupid of me to sit here for 10 minutes and explain Erling Haaland. If you guys play FPL, if you guys watch football, you guys know about this guy. The third striker that I have is Evan Ferguson. Now, this is the guy that's worrying me the most in my team. Coming in at £6 million, obviously got the same fixtures as Mitoma and Estepinian. Will he start is the question. They've obviously now signed João Pedro from Watford. I think he came from Watford. I know he played for Watford. They've got Danny Welbeck, who started majority of the games last season. I think Evan Ferguson only started about 10. He scored 6 goals in those 10. I think he got about 3 or 4 assists as well. So he was contributing every single game. Just bit my tongue there. He was contributing every single game, but will he be starting is the question. When I get more information on Brighton and Ferguson, I will definitely be updating you guys. I'll be doing obviously a second or third draft before the Premier League starts. But will he be starting is the question. He's a very good player, very young talent, and I would love to have him in this team because I think he will put out numbers if he starts for Brighton regularly. However, that is the problem. Will he start? Now, obviously, I don't want to bore you guys with all that. I don't want to repeat the same thing over and over again. I think it's a very good starting 11. I think it's a very good starting 11 that could cause damage in the first week at least, judging by the fixtures. Let's move on to the bench quickly. So we've got Pickford in goal. Obviously coming at 4.5 million. He's just a decent player to have. He's just a very decent player to have in your team. He's reliable, he's cheap. And Everton, if they decide to be a good Everton this year, Pickford could be a very, a bargain. It could be an absolute bargain. Now, with Wan-Bissaka, I did want to get a Manchester United player in there, whether it was a defender or a midfielder. Obviously, I'm not going to go for a United attacker because all their players are regarded as midfielders in this year's FPL, and majority of them. For example, Rashford, Bruno, these are players you want to go for. For the defenders, will Wan-Bissaka be starting on a Ten Hag? He, for me, is Ten Hag's most improved player. Man United's most improved player for the last season. He's probably the best one-on-one defender in the league, if you look at it from a non-biased perspective. I really like Wan-Bissaka. He's really good defensively. I think with him in the team, with Varane, with Lisandro, United can really, wrap up some clean sheets. And obviously, next thing we've got Digne. This is a player that's behind free kicks on corners. He's very good going forward, putting balls into the box. Aston Villa look like they've improved the team as well with the signing of Tielemans, so they might be a better team going forward as well. And obviously, Mendes was just kind of a block player. We don't know much about Luton. He was just a 4.5 million player that had to get in there. There's no £4 million midfielders in the game yet, so he was kind of a block player. But I've got 2 spare defenders in Wan-Bissaka and Digne. They've not even got, apart from, Digne's one might be a bit harder with Newcastle, but Wan-Bissaka, he's got Wolves in the first game of the season at home. So, whether, if Kane does leave, he'll be subbed in for me, or maybe Kane will come out, it's unlimited transfers, so I have to make most of it. But Wan-Bissaka for me is a very good player to have on the bench. He's coming in at, how much was it? It was around 4.5 million, 5 million, I think it was. So, he's not a bad player to have on the bench. I think my most expensive player on the bench was Digne, but I don't mind that because he, for me, is the best player on the bench in terms of output and numbers that he might provide. We just have to see if Wan-Bissaka starts or not. But like I said, this is only a first draft. So let me know down in the comments below whether you think this is a good team, a bad team. If you have any intel on any of these players, are they going to be starting? Are they not going to be starting? Are they potentially injured to start the season? Let me know in the comments below. I think it's a decent draft. I like it a lot. Took my time with it. It wasn't quick to make. The players that I'm most worried about, and I'll be honest with you guys, is Ferguson from Brighton and potentially Kane and Eze. I know these are 3 players that can provide me numbers if they start on a regular basis, no doubt about Kane. But with Eze and Ferguson, it's about whether they start or not, because they've got a lot of rotation in their teams. They can easily be dropped, easily be benched and rotated. So let me know in the comments below what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in the next draft. Make sure you guys like, share, comment and subscribe. That'll be much appreciated.